Hey, good morning. I'm Mike Solomon. I'm the broker in charge here at Coldwell Banker Vange and Fayetteville. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have another special guest for us, Shawn Groover. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, man. It's always good to be in here. It's fun.
So today is Veterans Day. So happy Veterans Day to all our veterans. And Shawn and I wanted to kind of talk about a specific subject and transition now the military in general too, but and we talk about that, but transitioning into real estate specifically, and I got a lot to say and talk about that. So
Yeah,
so man, let's start off. How you doing? What's going on lately?
doing good. Things have been a little slow, but I feel like there's an uptick coming today. I saw some things on the news this morning that the government's going to open back up, fitting for Veterans Day, right?
Yeah.
To be able to get our active duty guys and gals paid again and get them back to where they need to be so that we can be where we need to be at business-wise. So,
and I'm sure there's other parts of the economy that are excited too. I know all the financials look pretty good. Just word of it opening back up. But we're here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I know that I have subscribers in as far as Europe and everything, but here it's pretty significant for us because we're home of Fortress Bragg or Fort Bragg, which is the largest military post personnel-wise.
Center of the universe.
Yeah, it is the center of the military universe. Before I was stationed at Fort Bragg, that was my goal, was to get to Fort Bragg. I was stationed at Fort Hood, and I know you spent how much time?
25 years here.
Your whole career was at Fort Bragg. And that's not uncommon. That's uncommon in the military, but not uncommon for when you get at Bragg, you stay at Bragg, or you come back to Bragg.
Yeah. I mean, outside of deployments, I got stationed here in December '94 and spent 24 years and 6 months here, and then retired in 2018, which has gone by very quickly. So part of our subject today, I retired November of 2018. So this time, what was that, 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow, time has flown, and jumped right into real estate, and have loved every minute of it. Part of the real estate roller coaster, I call it. But it's been awesome.
Getting out of the military, what attracted you to real estate?
So my wife, Sherry, when we got stationed here, we grew up together, got married. I got stationed here in December, went back home in January of '95 and got married and brought her up here from Orlando, which was a big culture shock for both of us. Coming from a larger town to, if you remember what Fayetteville was like in '95, it was not the place that you necessarily longed to live at.
So you got here around '95.
In January '95, I brought her here. We lived out in Hope Mills, really not far from where you live at now, off the Legion, and it was great. I mean, we started a family here. We started working here. Sherry sat at home for about 3 months, so we were 21. Answered a newspaper ad for a office assistant part-time, which was the thing back then, right? You got jobs through the newspaper, not through the internet. And started working for Kidd Construction. And at the time, Mr. Kidd, was building a handful of houses. His wife had daycares throughout town, Kidd daycares back then. And she was to be a part-time for a limited time for a gal that was going on maternity leave, who decided to not come back and be a stay-at-home mom and raise her kids. And so 30 years later, Sherry's still at Kidd Construction. They've become one of the largest developers in town over the years. And so when I retired, I didn't want to work for the government anymore. I didn't want to do contracting. I'd spent almost 5 years overseas deployments. And there was this ready-made job for me, there to walk into. And we were in, at the time, in two neighborhoods, one in Hope Mills, one in Rayford. And so I was like, I just go out here and take all my knowledge from the Army, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Mike and I were in a similar unit, and it was 2019 really when I got into it, and the market was on fire. Which was probably not good for me mentally, looking back now when things have slowed down, because I walked into, I was selling, that first full year, we were top 20 in MLS. I mean, because it was just easy.
Definitely. when you start. My story is similar in many ways, but different in many ways. So you retired after 24 years, command sergeant major, which if you don't know, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
You stick around.
And you meet Shawn now, if you have a military background and you know your command sergeant majors, knowing Shawn now, you would almost never know because, and we'll talk about that though, but the change in lifestyle and the pace and everything kind of almost changes who you are. I was in the Army and got out here at Fort Bragg too. And I got out in 2000, very late 2009, 2000, early 2010, somewhere around that winter. And I was in for 13 years and I loved the Army. I loved my time. I was stationed between Fort Hood and Fort Bragg. I got out here in a couple deployments. And geez, I feel like sometimes I deployed a lot, but I talked to guys that got like 10, 15 deployments.
Yeah.
But then I woke up one morning and said, I want to do something different. I want to do something for me. Again, I loved my time in the service, but I was indefinite. I had re-enlisted and I was indefinite, which means you're pretty much going to be a career guy. But I found out from somebody that once you're indefinite, you can write a letter to Department of the Army, DA, and just ask for an ETS date. And I did. And then in a few weeks later, I got a letter back basically, and it was like, you're good to go. I asked for 6 months and they said, you're good to go. You're getting out whatever date it was. And I was like, holy crap, what did I just do?
Right.
But for me, real estate, I didn't know anybody in real estate or had family in real estate, but I'd bought my first house down in Texas and at Fort Hood when I was 20. And it had turned into a rental property and got here to Fort Bragg, bought a house, and I was very attracted to real estate. And I knew that if I looked at the pay scale in the Army, I knew that it was pretty mapped out for me. And our government does a really good job of pay increases every year. And, sometimes it was every 6 months and every year. And I thought the military was great compensation. I never complained about it.
Yeah.
I was, for coming right out of high school with absolutely no skills, I felt like I was rolling in dough. But I said, hey, I want to do something for me. And I knew I had enough time that if it didn't work out, I could come back. So I was attracted to real estate because of the business. I knew that I would get back as much as I put in. And it was a very low barrier to entry. It was a 75-hour license that I could take. And I did it at night when I was still in the Army. And I had my real estate license. So day one of my transition, I hit the ground running. But that's kind of why I did. And then I met somebody and had kids and grew and raised my family here. And
they're very similar. I mean, E9 is as high as you can go on the listed side. And so I'd gotten promoted, and there's no E10, for the civilian world, it caps out so that there's no way to get promoted. Every year you get cost of living raises with everybody else in the government, but there wasn't going to be an opportunity for continued promotion. You could get different jobs, but you're going to get paid the same. And, you say it's not about money. And, God and country, is part of the reason that we serve, and the 1% does serve our country. So at some point it does become money, and you're looking at your future. And so I could have stayed for another 6 years to 30. But I was 42. And I was like, I love what I'm doing. But I don't want to continue to keep going. My son was in 9th grade. I missed a lot of stuff with my daughters. He was playing football and soccer, and I wanted to do that too and be at his events. And, there's another deployment coming up. And so what I sort of thought in my head was like, I want to get into something that I have the opportunity to make the most amount of money I can. And if it's on me.
Yep.
And so we, Sherry and I rolled the dice and was like, all right, we got this 6-month plan. Financially, we're okay. Your retirement checks coming in are going to start coming in. And let's see how this works out, because it is on you. There's some other factors in real estate too. The economy obviously plays into it, but being that we're here at Fort Bragg, you got a constant rollover of military clients that are going to come through. And I just wanted to see, if I could take, this value proposition and be able to turn that into success, because I had been successful in the Army, but the Army laid it out for you. To me, it was always simple. Like the Army said, do this, and then you'll get promoted. And I was like, okay, I'll do that thing. And then
literally a checklist.
Yeah, go to this school and you'll do this. And in real estate, I saw something very similar because I got my license. I was an operations sergeant major in 9th Battalion, and decided, it was 2013. And so I went to the Saturday, Sunday class, which was awful. And so the battalion that I was in at the time, Mike served that same battalion, was one of the most deployed battalions in the Army, the Department of Defense as a whole. I mean, we had teams everywhere. And, as the operations sergeant major, you're sort of the, manager of the organization. The leadership's at the top, but you're doing the day-to-day grind stuff. And I was like, I'm going to go do this school. Well, so real estate school, for Saturday, Sunday, you're there at 8 and you don't get out till 5.
Yeah.
And I'm working a full-time job, from 5 in the morning till 7 at night. Kids are doing stuff. And it was probably the more stressful that, what was it, 6 weeks? I think 6 weeks.
Probably. We did Saturday.
It was like being in Iraq because I'm working, 7 days a week.
If you're looking into this, it's a total of 75 hours. And when we did it, there was no online option.
No.
But now there's online options, and their initial licensing is not at your own pace, but you do have options as far as nights, daily, weekends, things like that. Yeah.
And a flex where you can do partially in person and online too. So it just taking that opportunity and knowing what I wanted to do when I got out. And then so I ended up staying in for another 4.5 years before I decided to get out, and just kept my license active by taking my classes that I needed to and CE and stuff. And then, when it was time, everything was set up and just walked right into it with Sherry. But again, it part of that too was like I want to see it's on me, at this point. And, we rolled the dice, and fortunately for me, it wasn't 2007 or 2024, 2025 when I retired and walked into a very robust real estate market here in town. And we did really good our first year, and so never look back.
Yeah.
And have enjoyed every minute of it for the most part.
Yeah.
We've made some transitions through companies. And that's how we sort of reconnected back with Mike. Mike and I were in similar spaces in our unit, but never really knew each other.
Yeah. I can picture you. We always talk about this. We always talk about this. I can picture seeing Shawn. Never interacted, not because we didn't like each other. I think it was just our paths just didn't cross directly. And then it probably a little more time they would have.
Yeah, it would have.
It definitely would have. But so let me ask this question. Getting out. I remember a lot of people said, a retirement versus getting out ETSing is two different things.
Major.
Two different things. So you retired, but I got out, and I remember a lot of people in the military telling me that's a bad idea. Don't do that. But there's medical and retirement and things like that. What do you say to me? What would you have told me if I was one of your subordinate soldiers? I'm like, Sergeant Major, I'm getting out. I want to go do this real estate thing.
It happened all the time, honestly, especially in our unit. I mean, we had a lot of guys and gals, that had multiple degrees. Was tired, was ready to go do something else, to see what civilian world was like. And they at senior ranks as a sergeant major, then you had to come see me as part of our retention reenlistment program. Yeah, which I didn't necessarily like. I'm like, this guy's they're getting out. I mean, I'm not going to twist their arm. But for our seniors, our first class, master sergeants, and even staff sergeants I bring in, and we'd sit down, over coffee on a couch. It wasn't formal. It was just a conversation. And I would always open it up. Hey, you know why you're here, right? And, it'd be, all this I'm like, I was.
By the way, Sergeant Major calls you in your office and sits down and drinking coffee. You're not thinking everything's all right.
Yeah. Generally it wasn't, but, but we tried to be in an organization, you wanted to help people be successful in whatever they did. And maybe I was not the norm in that. I assume that other people did it in my position too. Maybe they didn't, but you always wanted people to be successful, and you wanted them to continue to be advocates and recruiters for the military, because I didn't want to, if I had sat down with Mike, I didn't want Mike to get out and then be disgruntled and then, telling this horror story of the military, because you're a soldier for life. I mean, and that's sort of a cliche, but, if my son ran into Mike and was like, I think I'll join the Army, you wouldn't want a guy like Mike to, have this terrible idea. But share his experience and why I got out and how things worked out. But I would have told you, hey, first thing I always ask, so why? Why are you getting out? And then you have that conversation. Okay. And then that next piece is, what's your plan?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was always a 50-50. Some people had like this amazing plan. I had one kid that had went to Duke, was the valedictorian at Duke, came in after 9/11, was motivated post 9/11 like a lot of people were, and served and did 6 years, had 4 or 5 deployments in my battalion, and was going back to get his master's degree at Duke. And if you're here in North Carolina, Duke is not an easy school to get into to begin with. And so this guy was super smart and he had a plan. But then I had other people, that had no plan. So that is where I sort of threw back at, okay, if Mike had said, hey, I'm getting out, I'm going to this real estate thing, I got my license, I'd have been like, okay, and good luck. And we're always here if you need us. And there's a policy or plan for you to come back in if you ever decide that doesn't work out, and stand up, shake your hand, and good luck. Now, my senior sergeant major at the group level, Mike Parrish, would always get on me. He's like, why don't you make him stay in? I'm like, well, he was getting F, and there's no way I can make him stay in. I can't force anybody to be there. And a lot of times people's scenarios or life situations, again, you want to be supportive. And then we go into the whole transition piece, especially for people that are ETSing from the Army and not retiring, and making sure they understand all the programs. And the Army, this isn't a recruiting video, but as we moved further into the war on terror and things got longer and longer, the Army did a much better job. I saw, for people getting out, not retiring, to have programs. Like my last 4 years, they had a program, they still have it within the USASOC footprint, that you could go do, not OJT, but internships. And we had somebody reach out to us.
We've had here at Coldwell Banker Van Fava, we've had 3 internships through separations, and one applied and ended up, that young lady got deployed. And so they were like, nah, you're going to go get deployed a little bit, but that's a really cool program.
Well, and they basically, their last year in the Army, they apply for it. They have to meet some prerequisites and they have some timeline they have to do, but they essentially are still getting paid by the Army to go work in their proposed career field, not getting paid by the company, but getting the experience and transitioning instead of the way it was, I think, when I first came in. You ETS from the Army, you went to like a 2-week course on getting out, and then you were out and figured it out on yourself. And there's no help and no past places to do it.
I want to talk about 2 things you talked about. First, when I got out and how it worked with my ATS, but I was also a senior non-commissioned officer, not a command sergeant major by any stretch, but I was
still senior.
I was a sergeant first class, so I had those conversations with a lot of people sometimes, and any of my subordinates. I remember one in particular. I had a young specialist, and he was, he was on fire. He was great, and I was like, man, the Army's losing somebody good here. But I always asked the same thing. I said, okay, but what's your plan? Because I care about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your plan? And some people are like, I don't know. I'm going to go back home and get a job. And I would say, okay, consider this. And then again, some people would be like, I got A, B, C, D, and E lined up. And I was kind of in the middle of that, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But I remember this one guy, and I was like, what are you going to go do? And he was like, I'm just going back home and going to start over. And I said, Cool, fair enough. But can I challenge you to make a plan first?
Mhm.
And can I challenge you to maybe set yourself up first? Think about what you want to do, what you want to be. Finances are a part of this. Do you have finances saved for a buffer, or are you going to go hungry on that first 2 weeks after your paycheck doesn't come?
Yeah.
And I would say, hey, look, maybe it's okay to do a 2-year reenlistment and use that Army College Fund. That I will say that the education opportunities that the military gives are amazing. I don't know I don't want to say names, but there was a gentleman that was in PSYOP with us that he was my first detachment sergeant, because I just don't know if he want me saying his name, but he was going to school full time in the evening for free in the Army and got as far as a master's in business. And if he played his cards right when he got out, he still had his GI Bill. And his plan was that he was going to go all the way to PhD level for free. And I think last I heard from him, he was like 90% there.
Yeah.
So I would challenge some of these people, even if it wasn't a 4-year degree, a certification, a training course, something like that to get yourself set up. And what I always tell everybody, and we're going to get into skills in a second, is that getting out of the Army and looking for another job, you've got an edge because you were in the Army or in the military. People like that. Employers like that. But in the private world, they only care so much. They want to know what you can bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And being in the military is great. There's a lot of good traits and characteristics and skills that you learn from that. But a lot of people in the military don't have a civilian skill that transfers on it.
Right.
And they tell you that when they recruit you back in the day, be all you can be, get skills for the rest of your life. And that's true. But they still want to see some abstract skill that you can bring to the table other than just I was in the military. So I would challenge people to find some sort of skill. And I've even seen people reclass, which is change your job in the military, re-enlist to change your job. Then the plan was to get out with that skill.
Yep.
So use your resources if you're thinking about it. Plan. Time is on your side. Try to set yourself up. All right. So when I got out, there was absolutely no class. There was nothing. It was like when I got that date, I would say that my unit was very open to it. They supported it generally. And I got to have time for myself to get set up. Again, I was a senior non-commissioned officer, so I had done some time. But I was able to, still check in and do my thing. I didn't get an intern or anything. But there was no class. It was ACAP, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
Army Career and Alumni Program. And I think it's ASAP now. No, that's drugs and alcohol.
You don't want to go through ASAP.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's
Soldier
for Life.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. Where there is a transition program in place, and I think that's fantastic.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a lot of it. I joked as I went through it.
I'll talk about ASAP.
Yeah.
I've never been in ASAP, by the way.
Yeah. But ASAP's a great program for those that need it. Right?
So I've been out of the Army now longer than I was in the Army, so some of my lingo and things are getting lost. So I'm not in. I wasn't in ASAP. I'm not in ASAP.
But that transition process, through Soldier for Life. Mandatory, not optional for the most part. There's some pieces you don't have to go to, but the Army forces you to go. And it's a great program for, your junior soldiers, officers getting out of the Army to transition back into the civilian world. It talks about there's some budgeting stuff, some other stuff, some classes, but now, I mean, it is truly, they bring in people from universities, people from the civilian side to teach some of these classes. And it isn't just, PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint or whatever. I'm sure there is some of that, but a lot of that is the ability there to, they have job hiring sessions there. They bring in different
resume
classes, things that like even now
that you just don't get in the military.
No, even now, if you ask me, like I didn't have a formal I didn't go to the resume class because I knew what I was doing. I was going to be in real estate, and that was it. And if it didn't work out, then I was going to go be a GS somewhere or a contractor, and then I'd had to figure out a resume. But so many programs that the Army saw needs for, as it got out, it didn't work for everybody. I mean, a lot of guys, would come back in, and we have, these break-in services where you'd see them back, and you're like, oh, you got out of the Army, and you're like, well, didn't work out and it wasn't like I thought it would be. But 99% of those people that I ended up talking to didn't have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And like Mike said, I mean, that was that whole piece of like, you know, if you're getting out, great. You know, thank you for your service. You know, make sure you hit Golden Corral on Veterans Day because you're a veteran for life. But
Yeah, get that Lowe's discount.
yeah, what is your plan? And if you didn't have a plan, that was what one of the
Yeah.
things that I carried from the Army, you know, is that transitional piece. Like Mike talked about what and civilian employees like about veterans, you know, is we do plan. I mean, like I plan everything. I mean,
Yep.
to the point where it's over planning sometimes.
I still do backwards planning,
Oh, absolutely.
which is
Absolutely. Yeah.
all right. So let me ask you this: what skills would a current military member not know that they have that are attractive? And we can talk real estate easy. Well, you know, being in the real estate business, what skills do you think a soldier, sailor, airman brings to the table getting into real estate?
Yeah. So I think, you know, one of the biggest things is your time management. And even lower enlisted soldiers, you know, you learn you have to be somewhere every day. I mean, my son joined the Army 2 years ago, and that was one of the first things he called back and says, like, Dad, you know, I mean, my day's planned out every day. And if you don't know where you're going, somebody's going to tell you where you're going.
Yeah.
And being self-sufficient, self-starting, you know, the successful people in the Army like yourself, you learn these traits that you're taught by somebody else. It's generational in the military. So I always have somebody there to guide me and teach me for the most part.
And the culture of it too is this is a kind of a joke, but if you're leaning, you should be sweeping. Is that what something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, so you always knew things were mapped out, and you knew that if there was nothing to do something to improve the organization, the unit.
Make Foxhole better. And so I think that's one of the biggest things, that time management quality of being able to, you know, assess your days, what that's going to look like. And in real estate, that just easily transitions into, you know, unfortunately, I'm still up at 5. I'm generally the first person at the office here.
Yeah, most definitely.
But I'm a morning person. So, you know, that doesn't mean that I got it right, because you got people that aren't morning people that, you know, if you call me at 9 o'clock, I don't want to talk to you because I'm sleeping. It's time to go to bed, you know. But I think one of the biggest things is that time management ability to plan out your day. And then when you look at real estate, like, you know, take a brand new client that just called me today. Best case scenario, if we call me today, we sign some paperwork, we go look at a house, we find the house that day, and I write a contract. Well, we're going to be together for the next 30 to 40 days.
Yeah,
that never happens. It's normally a 3-4 month, 5-month process. So, you know, having to build out those plans of what that's going to look like for that client, because they're trusting me to have that timeline, because generally they don't know what they're doing. And then, you know, we have that built in. Your office, I think, plays a lot in that too. You know, we've been in 3 different firms and gotten to experience the cultures of those and the goods and the bads. And just like the Army, we had this saying, you know, put everything into your rucksack, the good and the bad, no matter what, just because you're always going to be able to, you know, the bad experiences are just as valuable as the positive experiences. And you want to maintain those so that you know moving forward how to do it.
As a brokerage manager now, I love people that have transitioned out of the military. The success rate in real estate, well, first of all, and I say this in a lot of videos, and I don't say it to insult anybody, I say it to understand sometimes how hard it can be to start real estate. The attrition rate is 70% in the first year. And I don't see that in the prior military guys. I don't see that with certain segments also, but the prior military guys and gals typically don't have that attrition rate. And I think of 2 major skills that there's a lot of them, but I think of 2 major skills that I've seen prior service, what makes them a little more successful. And this is a story I tell it, training everything I possibly can. Every day in garrison, when we're here, garrison means we're back here and this is, you know, at post, we're not deployed. In a garrison environment, with the exception of a few things, every day is training. We're learning, we're practicing, we're training. And I have a saying that I stole from somebody years ago, but don't practice on your profits. So these prior military come in, and every day, like when you see the paratroopers jumping over in Rayford, that is they're yeah, it's fun, but and if you don't know, there's a lot of lead up to that. That's not fun.
Yeah.
But
Depending on what you
think, oh, cool, man, I'm going to join the Army and jump out of airplanes. And then you forget about the whole 2 days leading up to that and standing around. But anyway, that's a different story. But what they're doing is they're practicing. When you hear the pops and the booms and you drive by the ranges, and everything that they're doing is practicing for the Super Bowl, or when you deploy, or when you have to do it when life or death matters. Practice on your buddy dressing a wound, giving an IV, things like that. You practice. So when you're there, it's
muscle memory.
It's muscle memory. When everything, you know what's hitting the fan, and you don't think, you just do, because you've practiced it so much. And one of the big reasons, I'm circling back around, that there's a 70% attrition rate in new brokers is a lack of setting expectations, and a lack of initiative, and a lack of discipline sometimes. Well, these military members come in and they know that to be good at this, I have to practice. And that's just, I can't figure it out why people don't understand that they should be practicing offer to purchases, CMAs, whatever real estate skill it is, before they do it with an actual client. While we're writing up offers with home buyers and listing agreements with sellers, it's not life or death like it would be in the military. But it's a pretty strong financial implication to them, and it can be a big liability to the real estate agent if they don't know. So the military members come and they practice. They want to learn. The other very positive thing that I see is they get in early. Whether it's the office or an appointment or wherever it is, they're there before everybody else is. And that's, now there's non-military people that do that as well.
Yep.
But generally the military folks are the first one there. They're dressed and pressed, again, in the military, whatever generation you're from, fatigues, BDUs, ACUs, whatever it is, it was always a culture of looking sharp. Even in a battle uniform, you still wanted to have a good appearance. So generally our military members show up early and look sharp. And that alone sometimes means the difference in getting the business or not.
It does.
Now later, yes, I got to have the skill for it. I got to perform. But if I'm competing against 3 other real estate agents in town, and I'm early and I'm dressed and pressed and I'm well spoken, that's like, and sometimes that's 90% of the battle. So those are some of the big things that I think that people bring to the table. Some other ones are, discipline, self-discipline, knowing that I have to do this. Mission completion. Everything in the military is complete the mission. Yep. And the same thing with this. We can't just throw our hands up in the middle of a transaction and say we don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. All right. So
times when you can.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this one. Is there anything you think transitioning out of the military into real estate that hurts you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Aggressiveness. The military culture, especially.
I was waiting for this one.
It is very aggressive. And, Mike mentioned at the beginning about transitioning from Command Sergeant Major Groover to Shawn, right? Like I never heard my first name very often in the Army until I got senior. Then there's a different culture, especially in the special ops community. But you're 100 miles an hour, and that is what is generally successful. I could be soft spoken, but the Army built on that aggressive, because we're a fighting force. I mean, you don't want passiveness, when you're trying to change things. And so what Mike and I did, with some hearts and minds stuff.
But missions in the military, find them and kill them.
Yeah.
I just watched the other night in honor of Veterans Day. I just watched We Were Soldiers again.
Oh yeah. Awesome.
Overwhelming force, kill enemy.
Yeah.
That's your orders, Colonel Moore.
So being overly aggressive, I had to step back a little bit. Well, a lot, honestly. My first probably year, I transitioned, took 30, 60 days off through the holidays, and then January 1st, I'm 100 miles an hour. I'm at the office and just ready to go. And Sunny, our owner there at the time, was like, and I've known her for a long time. Her husband was in the Army, her dad was in the Army. It was like, hey, you just need to back off a little bit.
I got that too.
And and I'm like, yeah, but I'm ready to go. Let's do this, And she's like, that's great. We want that, but we just need you to just tone it down just a little bit. And so, I had to take a little step back personally, because my success in the Army was based on that persona, and then being able to take it into, the civilian world, where not everybody is as aggressive, and that's somewhat of a turnoff to not necessarily clients, because most of my clients were military, so they, and I never went into a transaction, when I met a new client, I didn't want to be used car salesman-y, like, hey, I'm Command Sergeant Major Groover, retired, I'm going to be your real estate agent. To me, that was like, I don't want to be that guy. But if it came up, then we talked military, but most of my clients figured it out very quickly, just because of the personality type. It was more of a negative towards my left and right real estate agents. Like, I'm calling. I go, what's the update on this?
Mhm.
They're like, whoa, man. I mean, like, calm down. I'm like, no, where's this packet? Where's the signature? Where's this document? When are we closing? What are you doing with this and this and this and this? And it would like freak some people out.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, like you're over the top. No, I'm working for my clients, and you're in my way. And so, fix and fire, you are now part of the problem. You need to move, and I need to go around you.
That can be a positive and a negative.
Great for my clients.
You definitely don't want to be a real estate broker that kind of crumbles or waits to let things happen. You've got to be proactive in your transactions. But definitely, I think that sometimes can too. I got the same thing. When I transitioned out, I was boom, 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 and for a long time, and it's a whole different subject, transitioning just the whole lifestyle. But from real estate, I had several people when I first started say, Mike, just take a deep breath, chill out, not life or death here. Just like bring it down a little bit, because I was like, where's this appraisal? Well, give me his phone number. And it's like, they're like, no, don't call the appraiser, man. Like, don't call the appraiser yet. Give him some time. And that was a challenge for me. And I know it is some people that are like, I remember thinking one of the first things was, why does this deal have to take 30 days? I wasn't trying to rush anybody. It's a big purchase, but I remember, why does this take 30 days? We can get all this done in like a week. Well, I had to learn the system, and I had to learn to calm down and stuff. I've had prior military ask me this question before in a deal that wasn't really going right, and said, but where's the accountability? Who does this, I'm not picking on appraisers, but who's this appraiser answer to? Who's this home inspector answer to? And sometimes it's like they answer to themselves. It's like, everybody answers to the client. The client's the boss. But so that definitely is a challenge sometimes.
With that was, I think, the second most frustrating thing internally was communication. So, as I grew up, I answered to somebody, and the expectation was, I would answer. You just didn't let things go by the wayside. And then as I got senior, if I called you, you're going to call me back. And it wasn't like I had an expectation for all of my subordinates to like be waiting on their phone for me to call. But, in the military, we have expectation on types of communication. So if I call you and you don't answer, I'm going to leave a voicemail, and, you call me back. If I email you, there was no expectation that it was immediate response, but you need to. And then if I text you, I'm going to tell you, hey, call me right now type thing. And I would get so frustrated. I'd be talking to Sherry. I would email something to another agent or to a lender or to whoever in the process, and I wouldn't get a response. And not that I wouldn't get a response at what I consider to be a timely, time, but it'd be like 3 or 4 days go by. And Sherry would tell me that, like, well, that's, common in the civilian world. I'm like, no, like, I called this person, then I texted them, and then I sent them email, and I haven't heard back from them in 3 or 4 days. And I'm driving over to where they're at right now. And Sherry's like, oh, you can't just show up at people's offices and barge in and, like, where's my stuff at? Because that's not how the flow, especially at the 30-day process. Because the same thing, this is dumb. Why can't we do this in a week? And there's certain things that have to happen. And then realizing, especially with like lenders and attorneys, where I felt like I wasn't their number one client. I wanted to be it. Like, but then I had to realize, and that applied to me too, that everything was tiered out, so if I submitted a contract to the attorney, there was 50,000 in front of me. And their timeline, which is why it takes so long, I think sometimes, is that they space it out. And if they didn't immediately respond to me, then there was a reason for that. And learning some patience, which, the military was not a big fan of being patient with anything. I want it right now because somebody else wants it right now. And we need to make it happen. And so I think having that, some of the most successful prior military agents all fell into that same trap, but they were able to become better because of it. And you look at even in our office or even here locally, I mean, if I were to go into the top 25 in the MLS right now, I'm almost positive the top 5, with the exception of a couple, were all prior military.
I agree.
Here locally. And then you look at our office. I mean, our tops all have some prior military, whether they only did one tour or they did 20 years or 30 years. I mean,
definitely provides a great baseline. I don't think it's the one factor that's going to make somebody successful or not, but it definitely adds to it. Let me ask you one more question, like marketing, getting out of the military marketing. Like you mentioned, you see a lot of, realtor parentheses retired, sergeant major retired, this, that. Do you think that's beneficial? Do you think that helps?
For me personally, no. I don't want, I joined the Army because I didn't know what else to do at the time. I was 19, getting ready to turn 20, was working, factory job back home, wanted to get married. We didn't have, a financial plan. Fortunately, Sherry was like, we're not getting married till you got a plan. And so I joined the Army. And, if you talk about, people talk about that dash on their tombstone, from date, dash to date, birth to death. The Army was a major part of that dash for me. And it made me who I am, good, bad, ugly. But I don't like to see that as that opening state, because I transitioned into a realtor or to a member of, the local community here. And it's not a negative on anybody that does that, because from a marketing standpoint, maybe if I was in middle of nowhere, Idaho, that did not have a largest military base in the world sitting next door, like the assumption here is everybody's in the Army, was in the Army, are going to be in the Army at some point. And so I'm not knocking anybody that does it, but for me personally, I wanted those two people, Army Shawn and Realtor Shawn, to be two separate people. If you read our bio on, Google, Zillow, it's in there. It says I was in the Army. But I don't want that to be the starting point. I want it to be me and what I bring to the table.
I agree with that very much. Again, caveat, agree with Shawn. If somebody's doing it, I'm not making fun of you, not saying anything. But I agree. I don't think it should define us, and I don't think it should be the factor that somebody's going to work with us or not. We want to be a pro at real estate. At the end of the day, a non-veteran, we got many non-veteran pros in real estate too.
Absolutely.
And of course, we're heavy on that because of our location of Fort Bragg. But it doesn't define. And I think that a lot of prior military almost use it as a crutch for marketing. And, I understand in a bio the unique, and it was in mine too. I'm not, I understand the unique challenges of a PCS and family. And while you might, so does almost everybody else here locally. Like you said, everybody's been in or going in or has connected to somebody that was in. So I don't think it's a defining marketing factor here. You can definitely separate yourself by your skills in the business.
And I think the way that we get clients now, maybe this wasn't the way before I got out and got into real estate, with social media and the internet, I don't think clients, maybe in social media, aren't looking that deep into who I am initially. Just because of the flow of way we get clients now. And so they're probably, surface scraping my social media to make sure I'm not some weirdo, but they're not looking deep dive to go, well, I must have a former military
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
No,
I don't think anybody's saying that,
no,
oh
but
man, this guy said he was in the military. He understands me better.
they don't want that.
Yeah,
They want somebody that understands real estate.
yeah,
They
yeah,
want a realtor.
yeah.
They're not looking for, man, I need a command sergeant major right now. I need a lieutenant colonel
Yeah.
right now. No, I need a realtor.
Yeah.
You know,
We actually, on a different aspect of this, when there's, I haven't heard it lately, but when I first started real estate, some senior agents would say, hey, when you're listing the house, and let's just say it's Colonel, Mike Johnson's house, and actually ask him to remove his stuff from the walls and kind of sanitize the house a little bit. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, you might get a young enlisted guy that may be a little jaded from his command or something, or think that the colonel's got more, or they have and it was like, I hadn't heard that lately. And I don't think that's a really big factor. But I remember I was taught that young. It's like, hey, have your military guys kind of sanitize your house a little bit, so other military guys aren't like, oh, let's get over on this young guy, or I don't think that's the case, but there's definitely a brotherhood, so to speak. The military is, the fraternity of it. There's some formal fraternity groups from the military, but again, I don't think
it comes up.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't had a military client that at some point my prior service comes up somehow.
Yeah.
And just in conversation, but it isn't my lead in like, hey, you want to use me as a realtor because I'm retired and I understand the PCS stuff, and okay, that's good. Yeah, great.
I honestly don't even understand it anymore.
Yeah,
just the other day, I said it already. The other day, I realized, man, I have been in real estate longer than I was in the military now. So I've actually lost a lot of that stuff, and I don't even remember what it's like anymore. Yeah. I remember it's crazy, but I remember my realtor really having nothing to do with the actual any way they could help me with my PCS.
The biggest thing I see that it my prior service helps the relationship with my client more than anything is understanding time.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, they'll because they don't know, and I don't push that my opening remarks isn't I was prior servant.
Yeah.
Is, hey, I can't take my phone. I can't take calls between 7 and 5.
Yeah.
And as a civilian, I would be like, why not? Well, I can't take my phone in my building because where I work at is a classified building. Well, when they tell me that, hey, I can't talk to you between 7 and 5 because of work, I know it automatically. Why? Because I was in a similar organization.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, I understand that I was in a similar organization. That's the click of like, oh, you were in the military.
Yeah.
And then we can have this conversation. But we already have a relationship at that point.
Yeah.
This just adds on to it and makes me maybe a little bit cooler because I get what they were doing.
There definitely is some connections that you mentioned that though, good or bad. We've had somebody say they can't go to closing. They're buying a house, they can't go to closing because of something. And I'm like, no, that's not a reason you can't go to closing.
Yeah.
It's not mine to say yes or no about their military deal, obviously, but I know if I had a young soldier buying a house, that would have been at least a day off. Like handle business, that's great, and then getting out and getting in the loan officer side, you have to have a certain amount. And then, with one little horror story that I guess my military experience kind of keyed in was a loan fraud situation where that soldier was separating, and I figured it out. It was one of my agents. I figured it out through the language that soldier was getting chaptered out of the Army.
We've had it too.
But they were under contract to close, and I knew that now, it's like a material fact thing, and we had to tell the loan officer. So I kind of picked up on that, and it could have been, you hear no evil, see no evil, but I don't like federal offenses. So I'm staying away from that. But awesome. So you got any final thoughts?
No, it's, our culture here at the office, allows us, and I can only speak from prior military, but it allows us to grow here.
Yeah.
And not pitch in the Army or pitch in the office, but it opens up to have that ability to be successful.
Absolutely. And I've actually sent new brokers to come talk to you. Now the Army. I had one gentleman who was retiring, and again, they nixed his retirement and said, no, we're going to PCS you. But I send people to Shawn just to talk about life and talk about what we're talking about here. And that's kind of why I wanted to do it. Okay, so to wrap it up, Shawn, I'm sure that if somebody's watching, They may want to ask you some advice about that, but also just as importantly, they might want to connect you to get into real estate market. Why don't you tell everybody to get a hold of you? And I will put Shawn's info in the comments too.
Yeah, so Shawn and Sherry, we are with Team Groover here at Coldwell Banker Advantage here in Fayetteville. We work from Rayford to Harnett County, anywhere in between. Sherry does a new construction side. You can reach me at 910-723-1477. Mike, I appreciate you having me on today. I always love sitting down and talking with you.
Absolutely.
We have a great time. So
yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, and I'm Mike Solomon again. I'm the broker in charge here at Coldwell Banker Advantage. My direct cell is 910-476-6801, and I can help you out in two ways. One, if you're thinking about real estate as a career, especially if you're getting out of the military, me and Shawn would love to take you to lunch and go talk.
Yeah, let's do it.
But also, if you're looking to get in the market as well, I want you to give Shawn a call or give me a call. And we have all kinds of awesome agents with different niches here, from commercial to land to commercial leases to residential sales. So you can always contact us anytime. And we'll see you soon. Happy Veterans Day.
Happy